Somebody else who's a patriot, who is at the helm of the conservative mothership, is our good buddy, Kevin Roberts. Dr. Roberts, welcome back to America First. It's been a minute.
It has, my friend Dr. Gorka. Thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
We have so much to discuss. We've got you for 2 segments. I want to talk about what we do as a conservative movement after 2024, God willing, if everything goes the way we want it to go and we all do our part. But first, you have been a man in motion. Last time I saw you was for the 50th anniversary at Mount Vernon of the Heritage Foundation. An amazing, amazing atmosphere, an amazing event. And I think you've been on the road practically ever since. So I'd love to know, Dr. Roberts, what are you hearing from Americans about the state of America and our future?
Yes, Seb, I spend as much time outside D.C. as I can, and that, of course, keeps me sane, but it also keeps me close to the everyday American whom Heritage represents. And I don't know how many states I've been in since we saw each other last in April, but a lot. And every person I've talked to, it doesn't matter if they're a conservative in California, a kind of a center-right person in Oklahoma, or someone in Florida, they say the same thing. Kevin, America has a very narrow path ahead, and what is Heritage going to do about that? And I know you and I will talk about that in a minute. But the other fine point that I want to make is that Americans are almost on the brink of despair. That's a really dangerous place to be, not just in terms of our own health, but it's also a dangerous place to be in terms of civil society. And you and I both know from our experience in kind of the academic intellectual world, Seb, that that's also what the radical left wants us to think. Yes. They want us to be despairing so that we give up. And so more than anything, what the Heritage Foundation is trying to do is the same thing that you do with all of your broadcasting, with your audience, and that's encourage Americans with a plan about how we're going to retake this country.
Is this analogous to where we were in the so-called malaise in the 70s with Carter, or is it worse than that? Because we look at what's happening to conservatives, whether it's Catholics being targeted by the FBI, or whether it's the president now facing more than 700 years in prison on trumped-up charges from the DOJ and the likes of Fani Willis. You are a historian by training. Is this analogous, or are we in an even darker situation?
Well, the closest analog, at least in modern American history, is the late 70s, precisely that moment in 1979 when President Carter gave that malaise speech. But I agree with what you're implying there, which is that it's this situation now, 2023, is probably even worse. And let me just describe that with some specificity quickly, although I will conclude on a hopeful note. So much has changed. So much has gotten worse since 1979. We've redefined what men are, what women are. Marriage rates, birth rates have plummeted, which of course have a dramatic effect on the most important institutions that offset the overreach of government. And of course, not surprisingly, not only has government gotten larger, but as Gramsci would tell us if he were alive today, the radical left has succeeded in this long march through the institutions. Yeah. And so those are all the reasons, Seb, that Heritage, more than ever in its 50-year history this year, is so aggressive. We're so ambitious about not just winning like little political battles with the left, but actually tearing out root and branch the administrative state, and in a figurative sense, going to war with the other side. That's really what we need to be doing.
That's why you have to join now. Become a member, heritage.org. We'll look to the future in a moment with Kevin Roberts, the president of the Heritage Foundation. I'm Sebastian Gorka, coming to you from the relieffactor.com. So we have to stop the insanity. Dr. Roberts, we have to get control of the nation. They've been destroying it, as you said, since Gramsci gave them a new plan, the long march through the institutions, as Rudi Dutschke phrased it. God willing, if everybody does their part, my wife, who worked for you, is out there knocking on doors for the GOP. She's a senior election officer in Virginia. Everybody has to do their part. If we do our part and we win, here's my big worry, and I want you to assuage my concerns. As somebody who worked in the White House, the biggest issue we had was personnel. We didn't have a bench, and there are 4,000 positions that have to be filled by presidential appointees, and then the rest. And I'm concerned that we will again have saboteurs like General Kelly and others inside the wire, like, so-called Anonymous. Jeff, what is that pathetic person's name, Anonymous? What's his real name? I keep forgetting.
Miles Taylor.
Miles Taylor. So we've got to prevent that happening the second time. I've been told Heritage is working on this, but here's my concern. As Chris Plant, my radio buddy, says, one of the greatest successes of the left in recent decades is to make sure that decent patriots, decent conservatives would never work for a Republican administration. Do we have a plan, and do we have enough people for the bench, Kevin?
Well, I'm happy to report, my friend, in spite of the fact that what you've outlined is real. I mean, the radical left has lapped the political right when it comes to preparing men and women for the kinds of service that you and others provided in the last administration. 2 years ago, when I took over Heritage, knowing that Heritage has worked on this kind of plan every 4 years, I brought a little bit of Texas mentality to it, which is let's make it the biggest, best, most ambitious plan for taking over the administrative state and ultimately dismantling it in the history of the conservative movement. I mean it. So there are quickly 4 phases to this. The first is what you would expect us to do, which is an analysis of the policy that needs to be implemented. But the second part is the one that you want to home in on. It's the one that will assuage your concerns. Because as you said, there are about 4,000 political appointees in each administration. We set out, Seb, to find 10,000 people who would submit their resumes, go through training for specific jobs we're recommending that they're appointed to. And we are on pace to zoom well past those 10,000 and get to 20,000. These are people who are going to be trained, pre-vetted in the likely occurrence that our weaponized FBI tries to unjustly kneecap them from even getting into the job. And then the third thing, which is what we're working on right now, is making sure that we have the executive orders, the rules ready to go for the administration. The final part is the 100-day plan from moment one of day one, that all of these men and women who go into the administration have the playbook and they implement the plays immediately, so that when we get to the end of the first calendar year of the next presidential administration, New Year's Eve 2025, when we're all sitting around popping fireworks and drinking our favorite soft drink or beverage, we know that what we're doing is reclaiming this country. We have to be that ambitious. We have to be that bold. Heritage is leading this effort with 75 other conservative organizations. And I am happy to report, my friend, that if we win the next election, we're ready to take power.
And are you going to keep it a secret what the plan is for the executive actions? Is this a public document? What's the plan, given that we know how the left operates?
The basis of the plan is public. You can see that at project2025.org. There are parts of the plan that we will not share with the left. The executive orders, the rules and regulations, just like a good football team, we don't want to tip off our playbook to the left. But let me tell you this, as you probably know, maybe some members of your audience haven't seen this because they have the good sense not to read the New York Times or watch MSNBC.
Yeah.
And it's that what the left does know about this plan, what they've been able to see at project2025.org has caused their heads to explode.
Oh, they're frightened.
They simply can't understand.
What was it? 2 weeks ago, there was the article, the secret plan for the conservatives to take back America. And I think it mentioned some organization you're connected to, Kevin.
Yes, indeed. The Heritage Foundation, of course, is leading this, but there are a lot of organizations that are part of it, and that's the whole point, Seb.
Right.
What we learned from the experience President Trump had in 2017 is that in spite of the best efforts of a lot of good people, the conservative movement wasn't quite prepared for the disruptor in chief. We need to be prepared in 2025 because the clock is ticking on this great republic.
Yeah. Well, I'm proud to have been an advisor to the former president of the Heritage Foundation, and my wife worked there recently as well, where she published this work with Mike Gonzalez. This is why we have to do what we have to do. It explains how cultural Marxism has threatened the future of the United States. That's at heritage.org, an organization you should join today. Heritage.org, and follow Kevin at Kevin Roberts TX. And I'll see you maybe on the gun range. I'm Sebastian